One in-state opponent down, one to go. This is Incompetent Sports Talk. Well, we got 1 week of college football under our belt, so welcome to Incompetent Sports Talk along with Mike Rabon and Jordan Loperena. I'm Alex Solsma, and let's talk about probably the biggest game for us last weekend, Iowa UNI. And I wasn't expecting quite that dramatic of a finish or that close of a game, but in the end, Iowa comes out with a win 17-16 versus the in-state opponent UNI. Mike, we'll start with you. Just tell us about your thoughts about the game.
Well, first off, I want to start with some compliments rather than some of the negatives. I was really impressed with how the defense answered the call in the second half. After that opening fumble by Packy O'Mara when we first had the ball, they gave up a long pass. But after that, we didn't give up a first down until about to Northern Iowa until about 7 minutes to go in the game. So I was really impressed with how the defense stood strong. I know in the end they were tested by Pat Grace, but I was really happy about what they did. Offensively, we need to be able to run the ball. Clearly, running the ball was an issue. I think we had 87 yards rushing. And Packy O'Mara had 16 yards on 10 carries. He struggled. And obviously, we'll see him at the number 2, and we'll see Adam Robinson at the number 1 this week against Iowa State. So all in all, I'm glad we got the win. Amazing that we were able to block those last 2 field goals and set NCAA football history. And it's good that we won a game early in the season. You know, last year we lost a lot of those early close games, and eventually we were able to win some down the road, but it really hurt at the beginning of the season. And I think this kind of game, this kind of struggle will help us down the road and help us be prepared for other games.
Jordan?
I said it all along that especially if the Iowa State game would have been at home this year, I would have been a lot more concerned about Northern Iowa than Iowa State. I'm not completely discrediting Iowa State, but UNI's beaten Iowa State before. I know Iowa State plays us tough, but if you look at how good, I mean, in college football now, some of these FCS teams could easily switch places with some of these top-notch, or with some of these bottom-of-the-barrel FBS teams. And I really think that's a case where Northern Iowa and Iowa State, you know, they're pretty close, I think, in the kind of talent they have. So, you know, I guess I was a little concerned about UNI coming in, but I really thought we were going to be able to handle them. They had us beat. That's what it came down to. They had us beat, and they weren't able to execute on their final 2 plays of the game. And the sad thing is they did not play a perfect game by any means. And they were missing their top 2 running backs, and they started freshmen all over their secondary. That being said, I do want to try and be positive like Mike was and say that I was impressed overall with our defense, the way they stepped it up when they had to. I would have liked to see more consistency out of them, though. I do think someone I'd looking to step up this week a little bit more would be A.J. Eads. I don't think he had the best game of his career on Saturday, but you know, and also I got to throw out a mention to Ryan Donahue. This guy put 4 out of his 5 punts inside the 20. In my mind, he's one of probably the top 3 best punters in the nation. I do think he'll be a finalist for the Ray Guy Award. And without Ryan Donahue forcing them to have to drive that long, who knows how many points they would have put up on us, because there were a few drives there. They were completing everything, and I don't know if they had a negative play on a couple of those drives.
I agree. And, you know, I got to give credit to Iowa because they found a way to win. No matter what opponent it is, no matter how close the score is, good teams find a way to win. And it feels like this year there are going to be a lot of close games where it could come down to the final drive or could come down to special teams. So I'll give Iowa credit there. And I also want to give special mention to Pat Grace. Even though he was on UNI, he played a terrific game. He didn't do anything to really lose the game for UNI. He led a team on a great 9-play drive to finish the game, had a 91-yard touchdown drive. So really, he played a terrific game too. It was just a hard-fought game. And UNI came in thinking they were going to win, and they really were expecting to win. So, I mean, you know they left disappointed because the expectations were really high, at least on their side of the campus for that game. Let's also talk about now the weekend in general. There's a lot of great games Saturday, Sunday, and Monday. So let's talk first about, we'll start with you, Jordan. Tell me what you thought the best game of the entire weekend was.
I think really the best game of the entire weekend had to be Oklahoma-BYU. A big part is because of the impact that game is now going to have on the college football season. You see Oklahoma, would they slide back to 13th, I believe? They slid back quite a bit, and that's a team, anytime a top 5 team goes down, it kind of restructures, the way college football is looked at least for that point in time. And, Oklahoma's supposed to be a national title contender, not off to a very good start. And you add the injury to Bradford on top of it. He's out, I think they said 2 to 4 weeks. So, that kind of changes the way Oklahoma's going to be looked at, because they don't really have a gunslinger in there, as Bradford's backup. And also you have to look at the significance of the BYU victory. This was a team going into last season that was spoken very highly of, prior to them playing in any big games. Everyone's saying, oh, they should be considered for the BCS National Championship if they ran the table, which they didn't. This year, if you start off the season with a victory over number 3 team and you're on the table and you are already ranked in the preseason, then I think you got to give BYU a little bit of credit for that and for scheduling a tough non-conference schedule, which I know you're quite a fan and you have a lot of respect for teams that do that. Mm-hmm. So I think most impressive win this week was BYU. Doesn't matter that Bradford was out for the second half, because they had Oklahoma where they wanted him going into halftime anyways.
And to hold Oklahoma to 13 points, very impressive by BYU. Mike, what was the best game of the weekend for you?
Well, I agree with everything Jordan said. The best game for me was the Monday night Florida State-Miami football game. I mean, that was an epic rivalry in Florida. Great game, came down to the last play. People thought Florida State had caught the touchdown pass, and they didn't. I was really impressed with Ja'Cory Harris. I thought he did a great job as a sophomore, coming in with only 2 starts, throwing for nearly 400 yards, and leading that last drive down the field to give them the game-winning touchdown. I know the defense almost let Florida State have it back, but I was very impressed with that game. And just to echo what you were talking about with BYU and Oklahoma, BYU now has Florida State, TCU, and Utah at home. So they're really set up to make a run at a BCS championship, which is something that most of us would not have even thought of really significantly before that Oklahoma victory.
And I do want to mention also, I thought Ja'Cory Harris was extremely impressive as well. The composure that kid showed, I didn't know he had it, and he went in there injured and ended up winning them the game.
Mm-hmm. I'll agree with you, Mike. I thought the best game of the weekend was Miami-Florida State. It was an upset that I picked, and I really liked Ja'Cory Harris that game. He had 2 touchdowns. I know he had 2 interceptions, but yet really when it counted, he made the plays. He's also the leading rusher for Miami that game. And that Florida State defense didn't look too good, giving up 38 points to Miami. Last week I was a little concerned with Florida State's defense, and really they showed me why there. But, Florida State, this is the type of conference the ACC is, where you could lose a game or 2 and still win the conference. We saw that with Virginia Tech last week. But I do think, I'll agree with you, Jordan, that I think BYU definitely had the biggest win. Last year they only beat 3 teams that ended the season after the bowl games with a winning record. And so really, they really came in this season with something to prove. Max Hall's a really good quarterback over at BYU. And to beat Oklahoma, I don't care if Bradford's injured, because Oklahoma's supposed to be deeper at every position than BYU is. And the fact, like you said, Mike, that they get TCU and Utah and Colorado State. They're a bowl team last year, and they beat Colorado. So that's another big game that they get at home. And Florida State, I know this is maybe a little too early to be talking about this, but if they run the table, there's going to be a lot of people talking about them possibly deserving a national championship berth. So a huge win against Oklahoma. I don't think a lot of people are talking about BYU in the BCS because they just assume they're going to lose to Oklahoma and they didn't have to worry about it. But now maybe looking like things could be different there. Let's talk about this weekend now. This weekend, there are a couple good games. I don't know if this weekend's slate's going to be as good as last weekend's, but the big game, the game that everybody's been talking about for a year now, is number 3 USC traveling to the Horseshoe to take on number 8 Ohio State. Any of you guys know when the last time a Big Ten team has beaten USC? Anybody want to take a stab at that?
It's got to be before 2002.
Before the Northwestern USC Rose Bowl, possibly, which was like 95, 96.
Well, Jordan, you're close, because August 25th, 1996, Penn State beat USC 24-7. Pete Carroll is unbeaten versus Big Ten opponents. Also, since that 1996 date, they're 9-0 versus Big Ten opponents, and none of the games have been cited by single digits.